imagine, son.
Hey everybody, welcome back to another episode of Off the Shelf. My name is Ryan, and today I'm joined by my co-host, Mario.
What's up?
So today we're going to talk about a book that came out last week. We're going to talk about Pulp.
We wanted to pick it, because obviously we're huge fans of Ed Brubaker Phillips here.
We
Comic Lounge, I think everybody involved likes both of those creators a lot. And this is probably a book that we've been looking... I think this is the book we've probably been looking forward to the most this year.
Yeah, I think this is the most anticipated book. I think, like, the minute that they teased that they might do a Western, I was like, oh, dude, please. Like, do it right now. Like, I saw them at a signing, and they were, like, going back and forth talking about it.
And I think they had the kind of, like, this art kind of teased out from the beginning.
Yeah, so, I know this, at least this part, right?
Yeah, so stuff like that looked like that, and it was just, like, because of that tone and that art style, I was like, dude, that looks fucking dope.
I know.
Whatever that is,
I want it. Yeah, so, I mean, like, when it came out, dude, and, like, I had the PDF. I've been saying this to everybody. Like when I was selling it at the shop, I told people, I'm like, I had this PDF for like 2 months and I would not touch it because even though I really wanted to read it, I wanted to read it in my hands and I wanted to have the book. Yeah. You know, I mean, anybody that walked in, I didn't care what books they were buying. If they were buying My Little Pony or they were buying fucking Batman, I'm like, you need to buy Pulp. You need to buy this fucking book because it's that great. So let's get into it, man. Let's fucking talk about it.
I like these. I mean, already I like the aesthetics. I like the lettering.
The lettering is very strong. And, you know, once again, they're joined by Jacob Phillips on colors. And I think Sean letters himself, correct? Yeah, he letters himself.
I think now he's starting to do everything himself.
Look at that, dude. Look at the fucking opening. I just loved it. The minute I flipped it open, I think like my heart was like racing because I was so excited. And it's just like, I love how it's just the one panel. And he's fucked up. That's the main character, Max Winters, who you'll get to meet later on. But I mean, right off the bat, you know that this book it's gonna be bloody. I mean, why wouldn't it be? It's a Brubaker and Phillips book. Yeah.
And then we tie into here. I like this opening title.
Yes,
it makes it feel kind of cinematic to me. This is kind of like
that shot, dude. Yeah, you're right. That shot is fucking very cinematic.
Yeah, and then we get at first I was a little confused because the coloring. Because literally the first time I'm reading this, I don't know. I thought this is the book, even though it's 1939, which doesn't really make sense because they didn't really have cowboys anymore.
Right.
I was like, "This. Why is the coloring look so different than what it typically looks like? It's very basic. There's very few colors, and even though it's striking, it just seemed kind of odd. Like this is not how they typically color it. So I thought maybe they're experimenting. Maybe they're doing something a little bit different. It's still gorgeous, and something you started realizing later on, there's an emphasis on color.
Yes.
Color use is important. This is a story, we see the main character's got a bright red shirt throughout the different panels. And the rest of it's generally more muted colors that are limited, where you see something that causes to have no color.
Yeah, I love the orange. I love the fucking colors that they use, dude.
Well, it's just giving you like that red earth, red earth kind of earth tone vibe to it.
Right. It gives off the Western vibe.
And then the way the colors kind of fade out, it just gives it this feeling of like it's an old book. Like you're reading an old pulp novel from like 1890 that's somehow survived.
Yeah, it's really fucking dope, dude.
And the use of shadows, I think, is fucking gorgeous.
And you notice, and I think you have to also notice the difference in the lettering.
Yeah.
You know, the lettering is different.
It's more like handwritten.
This you see this, that's different than this, and this is because this is from the story.
Yeah.
That Max Winters wrote. Because he's a pulp writer, right? Yeah. And then boom, you jump in.
And then you realize, oh, this is a series of books that he writes.
Dude, I love the color changes
and then
too.
You see the coloring, and you're like, oh, this is kind of criminal. This is what that looks like. And you're like, oh, it's because it's in the world of the book. That makes sense. That's why there's a completely different art style and a different like color palette.
And this is something that continues out. We talked about before we started recording. That jumps out at me is the story jumps. Like in ways that like you don't necessarily like you're like, oh shit, oh okay, that's what's happening.
Yeah.
And it happens to me at least 4 times during me reading the book. I was like thinking it was going one way and it fucking went somewhere else.
You didn't see it coming, dude? Come on, man.
Yeah, I didn't see it coming. I loved this. You know, he's an older writer. He's not getting what he thinks he fucking should be getting, and I think they're not going to give him as much work going forward.
Yeah, he says like, well, there's a line in here where it talks about how we got more competition. Cowboy like books are all over the place.
Right.
Like, we can't pay you as much as So your competition is my problem?
Right.
He's trying to imply like that sounds a lot like your problem.
Which is interesting considering that this is right around the time when comic books were becoming a thing.
Yeah.
Because Superman was created shortly before 39. Batman was 39.
And then you get Captain America in a couple of years from here.
Right. So, like, you see, like, I think it's interesting that he chose to use this specific year, and that he's, in the pulp started taking a downturn.
Well, that's the thing about this book. It's very personal. You can tell it's a very personal story from Brubaker, and I think it's commentary on the comic book industry, commentary on, like, just industries and entertainment industry in general, because obviously at this point, Brubaker's been involved with film and television.
Right.
And I think he's also just calling back to some of his old heroes in the comic book industry and how they got treated back in the day, which is a scene coming up where you can see kind of a...
And
that's a beautiful page.
Dude, I'm telling you, bro. I like... These pages are everything to me. Like, if I could buy original art from Sean Phillips, it would be these pages.
Yeah.
I don't even care if the lettering's still there. Like, I just love the one-page images. I think it's one of his strongest pages, single pages.
His crowds, like, it's something that seems so weird to, like, comment on, but his crowds are always amazing. Like, it's something it's some of those things you shouldn't really notice, and that's probably why maybe the average reader doesn't notice. But his crowds always look real. That's the big thing. They doesn't look like he's copying the same person and then just kind of placing it around different areas. It's a really good crowd that looks like, this looks like New York.
And then this is where we start to realize that there's more to Max Winters than just being a pulp writer.
Yeah, and then you see the return of the red.
Oh yeah, I didn't catch that.
So he's on the subway and he sees they're picking on some guy. They're being fucking assholes, and he's trying to be a stand-up guy. He's trying to stand up for them, be like, hey, what are you doing? He gets punched in the face, and during the violence, you see the red streak.
Yeah.
Come along, and you kind of start seeing that's color that is around.
That's interesting. I didn't notice that before.
And here you start seeing that he's got issues with his heart.
Right, and he blacks out.
And one of the themes is that, this is the third time I almost died. This is the second time I almost died. And you start seeing that death is a recurring theme for him. And if you know the meta situation, this is a theme for the writer.
Right, because he almost died drowning.
Yeah.
And I think it adds so much more.
If you know.
Yeah. You know what I mean? Like, if you... And you won't know this unless you're signed up for his newsletter.
Yeah.
Because it's not like he fucking blasted the internet with this information. Yeah. So, like, I read that, and I'm like, oh my god, dude. Like,
we almost lost Ed Brubaker.
I would have been so sad. Like I said it in another video, I'd have been in my room crying like a little bitch.
So here, he passes out because he has a heart attack.
Right.
And then we go back to the flashback, which is the story... But I think you start realizing here that there's more to these stories that they're not just fiction that he came up with.
They're his life.
They're his life.
Which, like, when I read that, I'm like, oh my god, like, this is starting to, like, really get me. Like, I was really getting into the story as we're seeing it. And you see, like, that he
kind of was forced into the life. He seemed to have a stable life, and then there were some evil business guys, like people that own land, that were trying to encroach on his land that just kind of get him to leave, which is a recurring topic that comes up in Western is, trying to take your land from you.
Yeah. And
he's forced to leave, but now you lose your home, and he uses crime to get by, but then...
He gets sucked into it, dude, and he starts to enjoy it and think, you know what I mean? Like, that this was the life for him. And, we jump back. And I like that we jump back constantly, right? Yeah. Between his past and his present. He's starting to decide to fucking make a bad decision here.
Well, he gets told that he's not doing well and he doesn't have much time left.
And he just got robbed.
Robbed.
That's what happened. He got the only money he had got taken from him.
Yeah.
So what is he gonna do? He needs to fucking.
Well, not only that, and so then we get the reveal that he's got someone in his life that he cares about that kind of helped him and believes in him.
Now this isn't his wife though.
No.
Like I mean it's are they like
just, you
involved?
See him in bed later together. So I think it's not his wife. He had a wife. He lost her, and I think they got involved romantically. Yeah, but it's more of a casual thing.
Yeah.
But here's another thing too. There's red on him always. The way I read it is, the bright red is in his youth when he was at his prime, and here that same fucking guy is faded. There's only a little bit left because he's running out of time.
It's interesting. I didn't pick up that either.
And so here you start seeing that he's starting to get motivated. He's running out of time. He doesn't have any money.
And he wants to make sure she's taken care of.
He has a person that cares about him that helped him out. And he's realizing, is this going to be my legacy? Just a fucking loser writer that doesn't have any money? No, I want to leave something behind.
And again, like the opening page. I like this, just the one panel, all black.
Yep. So now he goes and checks back in the offices where he writes, and then, so this is clearly tying in, like, this is clearly a criticism on, like, the industry and not just comics, but...
I know, dude, it almost made me feel like when I was reading this, I thought of Martin Goodman and Stan Lee.
Yeah.
Because Stan Lee is Martin Goodman's nephew,
yeah.
and now maybe that's just me fucking forcing that on this, but I kind of had that vibe when I was reading it.
Yeah.
And if it is... awesome. If it's not, I mean, it doesn't take away from the story.
I also get the feeling that it's not supposed to be just comics. It's just
in general,
movies,
just
television, and I mean, what happened to those people in the comic industry happened to tons of people.
Happens all the time. Still happens to this day. Yeah.
So he's starting to formulate a plan. You start seeing here's introduction to what's 1939. So
yeah, we're not even in World War II yet. No, like it's the precursor.
But Nazi Germany is starting to become a thing. And they're starting to get momentum.
Which, kind of leads into, like, I don't want to get...
I like that bit here because I think he starts feeling like another heart attack's coming along, and then says he doesn't believe in God, but he asks God for at least give me just the time to get this money so I can leave it for Rosa.
Yeah. And we'll jump ahead and then, like, back into his life of crime, dude.
Well, then, in fact, that he was a charming guy, that he was a good-looking, strong, young guy.
I like this. He had so much money that he used a fucking bill.
Yeah.
And lit it on flame to light his fucking cigar, dude.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
And he's reminiscing about the good times.
Yeah, dude. I love the color choices that Jacob uses in here. Sean Phillips, without a doubt, is a master storyteller visually.
Yeah, but Jacob's
coloring...
He's only been doing comic books professionally for only a couple of years now.
And he just continues to get better. This right here. I don't know why, but I really liked this panel specifically. Just him lurking in the shadows. He's formulating what he's going to do. The whole thought process behind how he's going to attack this and what he's going to do. And then right here, he gets fucking stopped. It's not just anybody that stops him. He knows who he is. He knows it from his past. This was another twist for me, dude, that I'm just like, Brubaker, you're a fucking genius,
Well,
dude.
It's playing off the tropes of cowboy movies, westerns, where the Pinkertons. I mean, the Pinkertons are always a thing. They're always going to be a thing. Mm-hmm. And they're always the ones that are like, helping out and investigating and trying to find outlaws. And here's one caught up with him, but they're both old.
Yeah, so he's not here to stop him. He wants fucking help. He's like, I see what you're doing.
That's the real twist. That he's like, well, what are the odds that I catch you doing this? Because I thought I was going to have to convince you to help me do the same.
Right, and dude, the book just takes a turn to for something else, and it's just like, I didn't expect what was going to happen.
No.
And here he tells him
help me pull a robbery.
Yeah, he tells him the plan. We're pre-entering World War II, so he wants to stop Nazis, and that's how he lures him in to do it. I read about this. This is a real...
There was a follow-up newsletter from Brubaker, too.
Right.
Because he got people commenting that, oh, that's too early, that didn't happen, blah, blah, blah. And then Brubaker busted out,
he busted out the real fucking thing.
You guys are wrong.
Dude, amazing, dude. The research that he did, like, in just the small details that he does in here, and the research going into it to make sure that it's accurate is brilliant.
And now yet another color palette change, because now you're talking about someone... He's telling another story from another thing that's happening, which also plays into later on the story. Mm-hmm. Which is he found out about the situation because there was a woman down the hall, right, that was being abused by her husband.
Yeah.
And because that's another third-party story, now it's got its own color palette, which is, I think that's a fucking great way of color coding the stories of who's telling what.
Yeah, it's pretty dope. And I like seeing the past their prime characters, like, because I love Clint Eastwood stuff too, you know what I mean? So I like seeing the movies where Clint Eastwood's a little bit older, but he goes back and he tries to, like, I think it's Absolute Power, I think that he was in, and he's like, he starts to rob somebody, but he's old, dude. He's old as shit. This reminds me of those types of stories, and I just love that he, like, his only goal, it's not just that he wants the thrill of doing it, purely to fucking make sure that his lady is okay.
Yep. I like that panel right there because it reminds you of like Fade Out and Fatale.
Mm-hmm.
This one right here.
Yeah.
When he's reminiscing about the previous people in his life. Mm-hmm. They're just doing a stakeout. They're checking it out. They're doing recon. They're trying to figure out what they're going to do. They're formulating the plan.
I love the back and forth between them, dude.
I like this idea that, you were this person was hunting him down, but now they're kind of friends because they're both the same. We're left over retired, tired old men of the same from the same place. We were just on different sides.
Yeah.
And you see
talking
more of that
about
red.
Right. Oh yeah, that's true. And then talking about the old crew and stuff, and how he had to stop somebody from raping, like that. So he's like, even though he was doing crime, like he was not an evil person, and he did it purely for the money, like for the thrill and the money, not to hurt people. That wasn't his goal, and again, that speaks to like his motives in this robbery that he's about to do. Dude, look in here. He does like those striking like colored changes, dude. The color overtakes the whole fucking.
But you see right here, because this is how we typically see the scenes where they're talking.
Yeah.
And we've had night scenes when we have scenes in the alleys, but all of a sudden it's red.
It's red, yeah.
Because there's looming like violence and
it builds the fucking tension for sure.
So that rally starts up, but they're using it as a diversion, and then they're gonna go attack the place that they're going to, and you see when the gunshot pops and actually hits someone. He's got the red, but then he's got a feeling that something didn't quite go right. Something's wrong.
Something's wrong. Something's off, and you see it here. They're in the fucking Nazi room, and he's like, "All right, give me the money that you have."
He's like, "What are you talking about?"
And they don't even fucking know, dude. So he was lied to. You know what I mean? Like there was a different motive behind his that was not just about coming up on some money.
Yeah. And then you got red again with the bandana.
Right.
And then I don't know if this was supposed to be an homage to the Shadow. Or not.
You know what? That's interesting. Maybe it is.
And then you see like a little quick recap of what happened in Mexico, because he kind of rode into the sunset.
And we kind of missed that in the beginning, because he talks about that in the pulp. In the pulp that he was writing, is he wanted to have the character ride off into the sunset, and then he's like, "No, we can't do that. We need to keep it going. Like people want to read about cowboys. They don't want to read about somebody retiring and moving to Mexico." So like, and that was why he did it, because like that's what happened in real life. That's what he did, you know. So we see, he comes and visits him in the hospital.
Well, the other thing that's crazy too is you start seeing hints of what happened, because in the early 1900s there was a certain flu that came about. Influenza was what happened.
Right.
And so I think the idea is that influenza came, and that's what killed his family. Because in the early 1900s is when he had the Spanish flu.
Which is interesting that we're also in another fucking
So it's
pandemic.
interesting that's kind of happening concurrently with the world right now.
And, even though he lied to, he, basically at the end of the story, we'll kind of like just briefly touch on it. He basically gives him a deed to a house, gives him money, and it's meant to take care of him in his last days.
Yeah, well, and it's cool that the guy comes back and kind of keeps his end of the bargain. Like, yeah, I lied to you, but I'm not going to leave you empty-handed. I didn't just use you. He starts seeing a life where he's there. He lives out his final days just hanging out in the hammock. Rose has got her house, just chilling out, doing her thing. He's hanging out, but you see that, he also doesn't know that that's actually going to happen. He's not naive enough to think that he's actually going to get to do. Yeah, so I like this part because it follows up. He thinks that the Pinkerton guy is doing something dumb. Like, you're not going to do shit. Who cares about banking things? And then he sees in the newspaper that it totally helped out. And that's what he even says, like, "Oh, fuck, good job, man. You did a good job." And he goes out and he realizes, you know what? I'm going to be a man about it. I'm going to tell him I'm wrong. I was wrong. You were right. I'll buy you a drink. Let's hang out. Let's be friends.
But he gets killed.
And he realizes, and he's dead. He gets there and he died.
And he does the only thing he knows what to do, and that's to go get revenge for his, quote-unquote friend. You know what I mean? And he goes straight to the fucking...
He goes out hard.
Yeah.
Like
This right here, dude, it was such a great way to end the story. He fucking goes into the Nazi fucking bar, and he just starts taking motherfuckers out.
I love this.
The contrast.
Back and forth.
Yes, dude. I agree, dude. I love that when you see... It was such a great way to show what was happening and to correlate it back with his past, because he's obviously feeling like, you know what, if I'm gonna go out, I'm gonna go out in a blaze of glory, just like in my old days. And he took all these motherfuckers out, dude. This right here, I was like, oh my god, the head gets blown off. Missing. What a perfect way. One image. Takes everybody out, by the way. He didn't leave anybody fucking alive.
But he gets taken out.
And he gets taken out too. And that's the end.
I love this right here, because that's the... he wins.
Yeah.
This is a lifetime of this.
Mm-hmm.
He won.
Yeah.
Until he doesn't.
And I like how he ends it. Anyway, that's how it all happened.
The other thing you notice too, he doesn't have any red left. He's not wearing red anymore. He ran out of time. That was the last of his red that got left. He used up.
Dang, I didn't pick that up when I read it the first time.
And then the juxtaposition.
Nice,
he's got the super bright red shirt. That's him at his full power. Because he's young. He's young and capable.
Yeah. And
then he goes out. It also reminded me of Sin City. Where the line's like, he's dying because he got shot up because he's helping out the girl that got kidnapped. I think a fat yellow bastard, I think is the story.
Yeah.
And he's like, a little girl lives, old man dies. It's fair.
Yeah.
And that's the last line he says before he thinks he's dying, but he ends up surviving.
Yeah.
That reminded me of that scene.
Yeah. This was a fantastic book. It's already at the top of my picks for this year of 2020. It's my favorite thing. It's my favorite thing to come out this year. It's probably my favorite thing to come out in the last couple years. I like this even better than the current volume of Criminal that just ended. Like, I loved this book. I loved everything about it, and I can't wait for their next project, dude. Honestly, yeah. I'm excited.
Yeah, this is one of the ones so with Brubaker, he typically doesn't. He like one of the things Bendis says is that he never hear his voice in his characters.
Yeah.
This is the one story where I feel like I felt his voice in the story.
Mm-hmm.
Once you know what kind of happened before him, and it seems like a lot angrier and a little bit more dealing with death. Death is a theme here, but I think it's because like the whole thing where he literally says, "That's the second time I almost died. This is the third time I almost died."
Yeah.
I think that's him just remembering his past because he also if you read some of his older beginning stuff when he first started writing,
yeah,
he wasn't a good dude growing up. He
right.
had his own dark past, and so
Low Life.
He wasn't an outlaw, but you get the feeling that he probably looks back on things and realizes, oh fuck, I could have died of these different situations I had when I was younger. So this is obviously the exaggerated version of him, but you can tell it's very personal.
Yeah, I mean, and like I said, like the fact that he wrote this after he almost died, it's just the feeling and emotion in this is so pure because like. He had to have written it like very shortly after. Because
when he says in the newsletter, he started writing it.
Yeah, it's pretty crazy that he was able to get this down from those feelings, and like this was almost therapy to him. Yeah. This was therapy, and his therapy gave us one of the best comic books I've ever read. You know the story
too about the whole Western thing with Phillips. So Sean Phillips asked him for a Western.
Yeah,
and then I think Ed jokes about how he feels bad because. He tried to write a Western, and it's barely a Western because the majority of the book takes place in 1939 New York.
Right. Well, maybe we will get that Western someday.
I mean, I'd be down.
He draws a hell of a fucking horse.
Even the stories that were in there about him and going to Mexico. Yeah. I'm like, I'd read that.
Yeah, I want to read that.
Give me that book. I'd read it.
Hell yeah, dude.
But anyway, yeah. So this just came out.
Yeah, it came out last week.
Selling out all over the place.
Yeah.
So if for whatever reason you didn't mind us spoiling it and you haven't read this, go out and pick it up.
On that note. Before we get out of here, just going to throw out where you can follow us, which is on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at The Comic Lounge. You can email us your comments, suggestions, if you don't want to drop them below, at thecomicloungepod@gmail.com.
Check out the podcast.
Yeah, check out the podcast on Podbean, iTunes, Spotify, anywhere you listen to podcasts. And don't forget to hit the subscribe button so you're notified every time we put a new one of these on. And on that note, we're out.